Imagine opening your eyes one morning, not to the sound of your phone buzzing or the hum of passing cars, but to the creak of wooden beams above you and the faint whistle of wind sneaking in through a window that doesn't quite shut. The bed beneath you feels firm, almost too firm, the sheets heavy and scratchy against your skin. A distant clanging sound, perhaps the rattle of pots in a kitchen below, reminds you that someone else is awake and already working. You blink, expecting to see familiar walls painted in modern colors, but instead your eyes rest on faded wallpaper, patterned with roses long since dulled to a muted gray. You push yourself up, and that's when you realize you are not in your own time. You have woken up as a Victorian spinster. The word alone carries so much weight. In the Victorian era, being a spinster wasn't just about being unmarried. It was about being left on the margins of society, judged for what you did not have rather than valued for what you were. Marriage was expected, children were expected, and to have neither was to be marked with a quiet kind of shame. Yet here you are, in a time when the word spinster is more than a casual label. It is an identity. And now it is yours. You sit up slowly, taking in the room. The floorboards are uneven, and the faint smell of coal lingers in the air. Your dress, laid neatly across a chair, is far from the casual clothes you know. Stiff fabric, long sleeves, and endless buttons stare back at you, reminding you that comfort was rarely considered. Beside it rests a bonnet, its ribbons slightly frayed. Whoever you are now, she was a woman of modest means, careful but not wealthy, trying to keep her dignity in a world that judged her at every turn. And now you must step into her life. You move to the mirror, its surface clouded with age, and for the first time you see a face that is not your own. The hair pinned tight, the pale skin, the weary eyes of someone who has lived through years of watching others move forward while she remains still. There is nothing frightening about her face, yet there is something profoundly unsettling about realizing that it belongs to you now. You lean closer, studying her, searching for a trace of the person you were, but all you see is the woman history would have called a spinster. The house itself speaks of her story. Small, spare, with furniture that has seen better days. A Bible rests on the wooden table, its cover worn from years of use. A sewing basket sits open, threads spilling out as though abandoned in the middle of a task. These are not just objects, they are tools of survival. Without a husband or children to depend on, the Victorian spinster had to craft her own existence, often relying on small tasks, teaching, or needlework to make ends meet. And now, every item around you feels like both a clue and a burden. This is not simply a dream. It feels too real, too heavy, too much like waking in a life already in motion. You can almost hear the whispers outside these walls, the quiet judgments of neighbors. In Victorian society, people talked. They noted who had married well, who had failed to marry at all, and who carried themselves with enough grace to withstand the sting of gossip. For a woman left unmarried, the world was both smaller and harsher. Respectability was everything, and every action could tip the balance. You wonder how you will walk through this life, how you will carry her reputation, and whether you will be strong enough to bear the silence of her existence. The day begins with simple chores, and you find your hands moving almost as though they already know what to do. Washing, sweeping, mending, the endless cycle of small duties that filled so much of a woman's time. But even as your body moves, your mind cannot stop asking questions. Who are her friends, if she had any? What family remains, and how do they see her? What dreams did she bury to live this way? And most importantly, why have you been brought here? Why must you live her story? The streets outside are narrow and damp, cobblestones slick with yesterday's rain. You walk carefully, lifting your skirts so they don't drag in the mud. Men pass by with only brief glances, tipping their hats if politeness demands it, but most look past you as though you are invisible. Younger women hurry along, giggling to each other, their eyes bright with the promise of courtship and futures still unwritten. They do not see you as one of them. To them, you're already set apart, already marked by the life you do not have. And yet, there is something strangely powerful in this invisibility. No one expects you to be dazzling or charming. No one asks you to smile on command. You exist quietly outside the usual race of expectations. For some women, this was a prison. For others, it was freedom. Which one it will be for you remains uncertain. As you return home, a letter awaits on the small wooden table. Its edges are worn, the ink slightly smudged, as though it has been handled many times. You hesitate before opening it, unsure whether this is a message meant for you, or for the woman whose life you now inhabit. Your fingers tremble as you break the seal, wondering what secrets, what disappointments, or perhaps what hopes are hidden within its folds. The words inside may hold the key to understanding this life, or they may only deepen the mystery. You unfold the paper, your eyes catching the first line, and your breath catches. And in that moment, you realize that everything you thought you understood about waking up as a Victorian spinster is about to change. Your hands tighten around the letter, as though the fragile paper might slip away if you do not hold on firmly enough. The first words blur for a moment, not because of the ink, but because of the rush of emotions you don't fully understand. The handwriting is elegant, the kind of script that belonged to someone educated, someone who cared enough to make every curve and stroke deliberate. The letter begins with your name, or rather, her name. It is strange to see yourself addressed as someone else, as though the paper knows more about who you are than you do. My dear Eleanor, it begins, and already the name feels heavy. Eleanor, that is who you are now. That is the name you must answer to, the name that has been carried quietly through drawing rooms and narrow streets, a name softened by sighs of pity or raised eyebrows of polite scorn. You whisper it under your breath, testing it, letting the syllables rest on your tongue. Eleanor. The letter continues, though the sentences are not as comforting as the neat script suggests. It speaks of concern, of the years passing quickly, and opportunities that may no longer return. It speaks of a cousin recently wed and of the joys of children already born to neighbors. And between the lines, even when the words try to sound gentle, you feel the sting of pity. Whoever wrote this wants you to know, in the kindest way possible, that your life is not measuring up. It is a reminder that society is watching, counting, and whispering. You fold the letter carefully, but inside you feel a ripple of unease. In your own world, you're used to living with choices. The freedom to love or not to love, to marry or not to marry, to define success on your own terms. But here, in Eleanor's world, choice is a luxury. Every road seems already marked by expectation, and every step you take seems to be judged. You wonder how she bore it for so long, this constant shadow of comparison. Did she cry at night, or did she simply harden herself against the silence? The hours of the day move slowly. Outside, the sound of horse hooves clip against the stones, and the occasional shout of a vendor drifts up from the street. The air carries the faint smell of coal smoke, mixing with damp wood and the bitter tang of cabbage cooking somewhere nearby. You try to settle into the rhythm of Eleanor's day, but it feels like slipping into a garment that does not quite fit. Every moment reminds you that you are a guest in her body, an imposter in her life. Later, you step into the parlor, where light filters through lace curtains, painting faint patterns across the floor. There, you notice a small box tucked away beneath a chair. It is plain, wooden, with a small clasp that looks as though it has been opened many times. Inside are letters, dozens of them, tied neatly with ribbon. Curiosity tugs at you, though you hesitate, unsure if these words are meant to be seen. But something tells you that if you are to survive in this life, you must understand Eleanor better than she understood herself. You untie the ribbon and lift one letter from the pile. The handwriting here is different, more hurried, less polished. The ink has faded, but the words are alive with energy. They speak of walks in the countryside, of shared books, of small moments that felt like everything at the time. And suddenly you realize these are letters of affection, of something that might have been love. Eleanor was not always alone. Once, someone thought of her, wrote to her, cherished her. But as you flip through the bundle, the letters end abruptly. No explanation, no final goodbye, just a silence that grows heavier with each envelope you open. Did he leave? Did he die? Or did society, with its endless rules and rigid expectations, pull them apart? You cannot know yet, but the absence of his words is as loud as the words themselves. You tuck the letters back carefully, your heart strangely heavy for someone else's story. Yet, in some way, it feels like your story now. You are living her days, carrying her burdens, and now holding her secrets. You cannot help but wonder if waking up as a Victorian spinster is not simply about survival, but about uncovering what was left unsaid in a life overlooked by history. The following morning, you walk to the marketplace. The stalls are crowded with women clutching baskets, men shouting prices, children darting between legs with sticky fingers and wide eyes. The world feels alive here, full of noise and smells. Fresh bread, damp wool, smoke from roasted chestnuts. Yet even in the bustle, you feel the eyes on you. A woman alone, with no husband at her side, no children clinging to her skirts, always stands out. Not in a dramatic way, but in that subtle way that leaves you feeling as though you are slightly out of place, never quite belonging. A fishmonger calls out to you, his smile just a little too amused, as though he wonders why you are here without a companion. A pair of women whisper as you pass, their glances sharp, their words muffled but clear enough in tone. You cannot catch what they say, but you do not need to. The message is the same. You are Eleanor, the one who never married. You return home with only a few small purchases, but with a heart full of questions. Was Eleanor truly unhappy in her life? Or did she carve out her own kind of peace in spite of the world? Was she judged as harshly as you feel now? Or did she learn to walk through the whispers without letting them touch her? Perhaps there is more strength in her life than the word spinster suggests. That night, as the house quiets and the fire dies down to glowing embers, you lie awake, staring at the ceiling. Your mind spins with possibilities, with the sense that Eleanor's life holds more than what you've seen so far. Somewhere in her past is a turning point, a moment when things could have gone differently. Somewhere in her present is a secret waiting for you to uncover. And perhaps somewhere in her future, your future now, there's a choice to be made that could change everything. You close your eyes, drifting into uneasy sleep. And as you do, you hear something. A sound faint but distinct, like the rustle of skirts against the floorboards, though no one else is supposed to be here. You hold your breath, straining to listen, but the silence quickly returns. Perhaps it was only the settling of the house, or perhaps Eleanor's life carries more shadows than you realize. And when you finally drift into dreams, the letters appear again, their faded ink glowing faintly, as though urging you to read more. Somewhere in them lies the truth. Somewhere in them lies the reason why you woke up here, in Eleanor's world, with her name, her life, and her unfinished story. You wake with a shiver, knowing that today you must choose. Do you follow her quiet path, or do you search for the secrets hidden in her past? Whatever you decide, you sense that the answer will not be simple, and that someone, somewhere, is watching to see what you will do next. The morning light is gray and thin, filtering weakly through the lace curtains. You rise slowly, the heaviness of sleep still clinging to you, and notice how the air feels damp, almost as though the walls themselves have absorbed last night's fog. The fire has gone out, leaving only the faint smell of ash. You pull your shawl around your shoulders and try to shake the feeling that you are not quite alone, though no sound breaks the stillness. When you step into the small kitchen, the familiar sight of bread, butter, and tea waiting on the shelf grounds you again. Eleanor must have lived with this rhythm for years. The routine is so plain, yet strangely comforting. Boil the water, cut the bread, spread it carefully, as though even the simplest task deserves attention. You realize that in this time, food is not rushed. It is not grabbed between appointments. Every meal is a ritual of survival, measured and modest. As you eat, your mind drifts back to the sound from the night before. The faint rustle on the floorboards, the suggestion of movement. Perhaps it was nothing. Old houses groan and sigh in their own way. Yet, Something inside you whispers that there may be more to Eleanor's life than the lonely picture painted by gossip and pity. Perhaps her solitude hides stories that were never told aloud. The day stretches ahead of you with no clear purpose. In your modern life, days are crammed with obligations, with lists and reminders and tasks stacked one upon another. Here, there is space. Too much space, perhaps. For Eleanor, this time would have been both a burden and a blessing. To be a woman with hours unclaimed by husband or children meant being free of certain duties, but it also meant being left with silence, with no role society considered valuable. You decide to leave the house, if only to walk and see what the day offers. The street greets you with its usual chorus, the creak of cart wheels, the clatter of hooves, the distant call of a bell from the church tower. Women hurry by with baskets of laundry. Children dart across cobblestones, chasing after rolling hoops, and a man tips his hat politely before hurrying on. You are part of this world now, though no one here truly knows you. At the end of the street sits a small, lending library, its windows fogged with condensation. You hesitate at the door, hand resting on the knob, unsure whether Eleanor ever came here. Did she read novels in secret, losing herself in imagined adventures? Or did she confine herself to improving books, moral tales, religious tracts, works considered proper for an unmarried woman? Either way, the library feels like a doorway, not only to knowledge but to the kind of escape Eleanor may have longed for. Inside, the air is heavy with dust and ink. Shelves line the walls, sagging under the weight of volumes borrowed and returned countless times. The keeper, a thin man with spectacles, looks up as you enter, his expression shifting from polite welcome to mild curiosity. Perhaps he, too, knows Eleanor's reputation. Perhaps he wonders what sort of woman still comes here alone. You drift through the shelves, fingers brushing against spines. Dickens, Eliot, the Brontes, voices of the age that spoke both to women's hopes and their confinements. One book catches your eye, its cover worn but its title still visible. Villette by Charlotte Bronte. A story of a solitary woman, wandering in foreign lands, navigating loneliness with resilience. You slip it from the shelf and carry it to a small corner, where the light falls just enough to read. The hours pass quickly as you lose yourself in the pages. You feel a kinship with the character, her quiet endurance, her struggles that mirror Eleanor's in ways almost too sharp. Perhaps Eleanor read these same lines once. Perhaps she too found comfort in knowing that her solitude was not unique. For a moment, you forget that you're living someone else's life. For a moment, you simply are. When you leave the library, dusk is already settling, casting long shadows across the street. You clutch the book to your chest, borrowing it as though it is more than a story, as though it is a lifeline. The air grows colder, and the lamps along the road are lit one by one. Their glow soft and uncertain against the growing dark. Back at the house, you light the fire again and prepare a simple supper. The flames dance, chasing away the chill, and for the first time today, you feel a little less like a stranger. You sit at the table, book resting nearby, and the silence of the house wraps around you like a cloak. Yet even in the quiet, you cannot forget the letters. The bundle hidden in the box beneath the chair waits for you, whispering of a past not yet fully revealed. You pull the box out once more, untie the ribbon, and select a letter at random. The words spill across the page with warmth, speaking of walks by the river, of laughter shared, of promises that feel almost like vows. And then, in another letter, you see something different: hesitation. Mentions of family disapproval, of circumstances changing, of obligations that pull him away. You can almost hear his voice faltering, caught between affection and duty. The final letter is brief. So brief it feels like a knife. "Forgive me," it says, nothing more. No explanation, no farewell, just two words that cut deeper than pages of sorrow. You close your eyes, heart aching for a woman you barely know, for a love that ended not with tragedy, but with silence. Sometimes silence is the hardest wound of all. You place the letters back carefully, as though returning them to rest. Eleanor lived on after that, you realize. She continued with her days, her chores, her visits to market, her quiet evenings by the fire. She carried this loss without complaint, wearing her solitude like an unchosen garment. And yet, somewhere within her must have been a spark, the part of her that saved those letters, that held on to the memory instead of letting it fade. Night falls fully, and once again you lie in bed, staring at the shadows. The house creaks, the wind brushes against the window pane, and you cannot shake the feeling that Eleanor herself is near. Not as a ghost, not in some supernatural way, but as a presence, as though she is waiting for you to finish what she could not, to tell her story, to uncover her truth, to live her life with eyes wide open. You turn on your side, the blanket heavy across your shoulders, and whisper her name softly into the darkness. Eleanor. It feels less like a borrowed name now and more like a shared one. You are not only living as her, you are living with her. Two lives intertwined, two voices echoing through time. And in that strange thought, sleep takes you, carrying you into dreams of letters, cobblestones, and faces you have yet to meet. When you wake the next morning, the sense of unease has not left you. It lingers like a thread pulling you towards something still hidden. You know now that Eleanor's story is not one of simple loneliness. It is a story of love lost, of choices taken from her, of a silence heavy with unspoken words. And perhaps, just perhaps, it is also a story of secrets yet to be uncovered. And as you rise to face the new day, one question refuses to leave your mind. If you woke up as Eleanor, does that mean you must finish her life or change it? The morning feels clearer than the last. Sunlight filters through the curtains in pale stripes, catching dust motes that drift lazily in the air. You sit up slowly, hearing the faint creak of the bed frame, and for a moment you allow yourself to imagine it as your own room, your own time. But the sight of the wallpaper, faded and curling at the edges, reminds you where you are. Eleanor's life, Eleanor's body, Eleanor's unfinished story. The sounds of a street below are louder today. The clatter of wheels, the sharp calls of a boy selling papers, the laughter of two young women passing by with their parasols tapping gently against their skirts. You rise, pull the shawl around your shoulders, and glance once more at the small box beneath the chair. It feels heavier than its size suggests, as though the letters it holds weigh more than paper should. You decide to leave it untouched this morning, knowing you could get lost in it for hours. Instead, you gather your bonnet and step outside. The air is brisk, carrying with it the scent of coal smoke and damp stone. The street stretches out in both directions, lined with narrow houses pressed tightly together. Laundry hangs across one alleyway, flapping faintly in the breeze. Somewhere nearby, a church bell begins to ring, its sound deep and steady, marking the hour. As you walk, you feel the eyes of neighbors upon you. It is not hostility, not even open judgment, just that quiet curiosity that attaches itself to women who live outside of expectation. You catch the eye of Mrs. Hughes, the butcher's wife, who nods politely before turning back to her basket. Two girls whisper behind gloved hands as you pass, their giggles rising like tiny bells. You feel the sting of it, though you know Eleanor must have grown used to such moments long ago. At the corner of the street stands a bakery, warm with the smell of fresh bread and pastries. You step inside, the bell above the door tinkling softly. Behind the counter, the baker greets you with a polite smile, flowers still dusted across his apron. He speaks kindly enough, but there's a flicker in his expression, the recognition of Eleanor's situation, the silent awareness that you are a woman alone. He wraps a loaf of bread in brown paper, and as he hands it to you, you see in his eyes both pity and respect. Perhaps he knows her struggles. Perhaps he admires her quiet resilience. Leaving the bakery, you wander farther, down streets where children play with hoops and men unload goods from carts. The city hums with life, but you feel strangely apart from it, as though you are walking through someone else's dream. You stop at a small shop window, where trinkets and fabrics are displayed. The reflection in the glass startles you for a moment. Eleanor's face stares back, pale and calm, her bonnet tied neatly beneath her chin. You study the expression, neither bitter nor joyful, but steady, as though she has learned to endure without complaint. It is then that you notice a figure standing just across the street. A man, tall and thin, dressed in a dark coat. He seems to be watching you. When your eyes meet his, he quickly looks away, adjusting his hat, and steps into the crowd. You feel a chill run down your spine. Was he simply a passerby? Or does Eleanor's life carry more shadows than you realized? You turn back toward home, heart unsettled. The streets seem longer now, the faces of strangers less familiar. Every sound feels sharper. The clop of horses' hooves, the scrape of boots on stone, the rustle of skirts. When you finally reach the door, you close it quickly behind you, leaning against the wood as though it can shield you from the questions pressing in on all sides. Inside, the house feels both safe and lonely. You set the bread on the table, light a small fire, and sit quietly for a while, listening to the crackle of the flames. Your thoughts return again and again to the man on the street. Was he connected to Eleanor's past? Could he be tied to the letters, to the sudden silence of a love that ended without explanation? The possibility clings to you, refusing to let go. As the afternoon passes, you find yourself drawn once more to the small box beneath the chair. You pull it out, untie the ribbon, and carefully sift through the letters again. One envelope catches your eye, not for its words, but for its seal. The wax is a deep red, unbroken, suggesting it was never opened. Your pulse quickens as you turn it over in your hands. Why would Eleanor have kept it sealed? Was she afraid of what it might say? Or did she simply decide she could not bear to know? For a long moment you sit there, the letter heavy in your palm. At last, you slide your finger beneath the seal, breaking it with a soft crack. Inside, the handwriting is unfamiliar, sharper, less warm. The words are blunt, almost cruel. They speak of duty, of family honor, of obligations that must come before personal feelings. They warn against the match Eleanor hoped for, insisting it could not be allowed. You realize then that it was not only his choice to leave, it was forced upon him, perhaps by family, perhaps by circumstance. Your breath catches as the truth settles over you. Eleanor's solitude was not simply a matter of chance or her own decision. It was shaped by forces beyond her control, by the rigid rules of a society that valued duty over affection. She did not lose him because of lack of love, but because of the weight of expectations. That knowledge sits heavy in your chest, both heartbreaking and strangely illuminating. Evening falls again, and you light the lamps, their glow soft and flickering against the walls. You sit at the table with the letters spread before you, the sealed one now lying open, its harsh words exposed. You imagine Eleanor holding it once, staring at the unbroken seal, deciding whether to open it. Perhaps she chose silence instead of pain. Perhaps she decided it was better not to know. And yet, she kept it. She could have burned it, thrown it away, erased the evidence of disappointment. But she kept it as though some part of her wanted the truth to remain, even if she could not face it herself. You gather the letters back into the box, your hands trembling slightly. Outside, the night is quiet, but the unease in your heart has only grown. You wonder again about the man in the dark coat. Could he be connected to this past? Could he be someone who knows Eleanor's story better than you do? The thought unsettles you, but it also sparks something else, a determination. You cannot remain a silent figure in this life. You must uncover what really happened and why Eleanor's days turned into years of solitude. When you finally climb into bed, the weight of the letters presses on your thoughts. You close your eyes, but the words echo still: duty, obligation, honor. They speak of a society that demanded sacrifice, that took away choices from women like Eleanor, leaving them to carry the burden in silence. And as sleep begins to pull you under, you hear once more the faint rustle in the house, the suggestion of movement in the shadows. You open your eyes into the darkness, heart quickening. The sound is closer this time, unmistakable. You are not imagining it. Someone, or something, is moving in the house with you. And before you can rise, before you can light the lamp, the sound stops. The silence returns, deeper than before. You lie there in the dark, the air thick with tension, wondering if Eleanor's story is far more dangerous than you first believed. The silence, after the sound fades, is the kind that makes you more aware of yourself than of anything else. You feel your own heartbeat thudding, each breath sharp in your chest. You strain your ears, waiting for another rustle, another sign of movement, but the house remains still. The fire downstairs is long gone out, leaving the air cold and heavy. You lie awake, your eyes fixed on the darkness, half convinced that if you move too quickly, whatever was there will notice you. Sleep comes only in fragments, broken by the unease that lingers in your bones. When dawn arrives, pale light crawling slowly across the room, you rise with the stiffness of someone who has not rested properly. The house looks harmless in daylight. The shadows have softened, and everything feels as it should. The table, the hearth, the quiet comfort of familiarity. Yet the memory of that sound clings to you. You tell yourself it was just the house, shifting with settling against the chill, but deep down, you cannot shake the feeling that someone else was near. You dress in Eleanor's clothes once more, the weight of the fabric reminding you of how far you are from your own time. The gown is plain, the color muted, but respectable. It is the sort of clothing that makes no statement, drawing neither praise nor scorn. A spinster's dress, you think, though you correct yourself almost immediately, is simply Eleanor's dress. And with it, you must step into her world again. The morning streets are already busy. The smell of damp stone and coal smoke lingers in the air, mixed with the faint sweetness of bread baked hours earlier. You walk toward the marketplace, partly to escape the closeness of the house, partly to lose yourself among the bustle. But even here, even in the noise and press of people, you feel the weight of invisible eyes. Not hostile, not sharp, just ever-present. A woman alone always draws attention, even if no words are spoken. Near the fruit stall, Mrs. Green greets you with a polite smile. She is older, her hair pinned neatly under a bonnet, her hands quick as she weighs apples on a scale. "Good morning, Miss Eleanor," she says, her tone kind but measured. You reply with the words that seem to rise naturally in Eleanor's voice, though part of you feels like an actor repeating lines. You ask about the apples, about the weather, about things that fill the silence without ever touching truth. Mrs. Green leans closer as she hands you the fruit. "I saw someone outside your house last evening," she says quietly, almost as if she regrets speaking. A tall man, just standing, as though waiting. Her words send a chill down your spine, confirming what you had seen, what you had felt. But you force a small smile, nodding politely, offering no hint of the unease that curls in your chest. When you leave the stall, your mind races. The man in the dark coat was real. Others had seen him too. Why was he there? Was he watching you? Or was he watching Eleanor's house long before you arrived in her life? The thought follows you all the way home, clinging like a shadow. Back in the small parlor, you sit at the table, the loaf of bread and fruit before you, but you find no appetite. Your eyes drift again to the box beneath the chair. You know you should leave it alone, that it carries only sorrow, but curiosity presses harder with each passing hour. Eleanor's letters are not just pieces of paper. They are fragments of her story, and perhaps the only way to understand why her life ended in quiet solitude. You untie the ribbon once more, spreading the letters across the table. Your eyes scan them, not just for words of love or rejection, but for names, places, details that might connect to the man you saw. One name repeats itself several times. James. Sometimes affectionate, sometimes formal, but always present. James was the man Eleanor loved, the one who vanished from her life after duty or family or something else pulled him away. Could the man on the street be James, older now, or someone connected to him? The possibility unsettles you, though you know the years would have changed him. The afternoon drags on. You tidy the house, sweep the floor, mend a small tear in the hem of Eleanor's dress. The chores ground you, reminding you that life in this time was often filled with such small, repetitive tasks. Yet even as your hands work, your thoughts circle back to the same questions. Why did the letters end so abruptly? Why did Eleanor keep them when every word must have been a reminder of loss? And most of all, why do you feel as though her story is not finished? As the light begins to fade, you step outside again, unable to bear the closeness of the house any longer. The air is cooler now, the cobblestones damp with a fine mist that clings to your skirts. You walk without direction, turning corners, moving down narrow lanes, try to lose the sense of being watched. But at the edge of your vision, you glimpse him again, the man in the dark coat. Standing still, his figure blurred in the fog. When you turn fully, he is gone. Only empty street remains, the mist curling around the lamps just being lit. You quicken your pace, heart beating faster, but by the time you reach your own door, the street is empty, silent except for the drip of water from the rooftops. Inside, you light the fire quickly, welcoming its glow. The warmth steadies you, but only slightly. You cannot escape the sense that Eleanor's life is not just one of solitude, but of secrets. The man, the sealed letter, the whispers in the market, all point to a story that was never fully told. And now you are in the center of it, carrying her name, her body, her burdens. As night falls, you sit with the book you borrowed from the library. The words are familiar, yet you read them slowly, each page a reminder that even women marked as spinsters had lives filled with depth, with sorrow, with resilience. The story comforts you, even as unease lingers in the back of your mind. Later, lying in bed, the sounds of the house surround you once again. The creak of beams, the faint whistle of wind, the distant clatter of a cart on the cobblestones outside. You close your eyes, try to will yourself into sleep. But just as the edges of rest begin to soften your thoughts, you hear it again. The rustle of movement. This time, not distant, not faint, but close. Too close. You open your eyes, heart hammering, but the room is too dark to see clearly. You lie perfectly still, listening, every nerve alert. The sound pauses as if whoever, or whatever, is there knows you are awake. The silence stretches so long you begin to doubt yourself, to wonder if it is only your imagination. But then, just as your breath begins to steady, the floorboard at the foot of your bed creaks. You grip the blanket tighter, frozen, waiting. The room remains shrouded in darkness, the air thick and heavy. You cannot move, cannot speak. You know only that something or someone is in the room with you. And then, without warning, the sound stops. Silence swallows the space once more. The house returns to stillness, as though nothing happened. You lie awake the rest of the night, afraid to close your eyes, knowing that Eleanor's quiet life hides truths far darker than the world outside would ever imagine. The morning comes gray and slow, the kind of light that never seems to fully brighten the streets. You have not slept, and every movement of your body feels heavy, as though the weight of the night clings to your skin. You force yourself to rise, dress, and face the day, though the memory of that creaking floorboard lingers with every step. The bed behind you looks untouched, as though it never held a restless body. You wonder if perhaps Eleanor herself had nights like this, sleepless, tense, always waiting for something just beyond her reach. The street outside is damp again, mist curling along the ground, muffling sound. The neighbors are already busy, a woman scrubbing her doorstep, children carrying small baskets, the smell of coal and ash heavy in the air. They nod politely as you pass, each gesture small, controlled, shaped by routine. To them, you are Eleanor, the woman who has lived in that quiet house for years, whose name they know but whose story they rarely ask about. Yet beneath their nods, you sense curiosity, perhaps pity, perhaps suspicion. A spinster always invites whispers. You walk with no fixed destination until you find yourself at the small chapel near the square. Its stone walls are worn, the bell tower leaning ever so slightly. Inside, the air is cooler, smelling faintly of candle wax and old wood. A few women sit quietly in the pews, heads bowed. You slide into a seat at the back, the hush pressing against you. For a moment, the silence feels almost like relief. No creaks, no rustles, no unseen figure standing in the fog. Just stillness. Your eyes wander to the wall, where a board lists names of parishioners, births, marriages, deaths. The chalk is fresh, written with care. And there, near the bottom, you see it, James Whitmore. Your pulse quickens. The same name that filled Eleanor's letters, the same man who vanished from her life, is written here under deaths. The date beside it is only a year past. A mix of relief and dread washes over you. If James is dead, then who was the man in the coat? Who stood outside Eleanor's house? Who entered your room in the night? You close your eyes, steadying yourself, but the thought refuses to leave. Perhaps someone connected to James remains. Perhaps secrets linger even after the grave. When you leave the chapel, the mist has lifted slightly. The streets feel less oppressive, yet you walk quickly, your mind circling that single name. James. The letters, the affection, the abandonment, the quiet grief that shaped Eleanor's life. It all centers on him. And now his death. You wonder if Eleanor knew, if she lived her final year with the knowledge that the man she once loved had gone forever. Back at the house, you set the bread on the table, but the sight of it makes your stomach turn. Instead, you gather the letters again, looking for patterns, for words that might connect to something tangible. The last letter, the one Eleanor never opened, lies at the bottom. Its seal is still intact, brittle with age. You run your fingers across it, tempted to break it, to finally uncover what Eleanor herself could not bring herself to read. But something stops you. Perhaps fear, perhaps respect. You tuck it back under the ribbon. Not yet. The day passes slowly. You mend, sweep, polish the small brass candlesticks, anything to keep your hands busy. But each time the floor creaks, each time a shadow moves across the wall, you find yourself glancing quickly over your shoulder. The memory of last night will not let you rest. As dusk falls, a knock at the door startles you. For a moment you freeze, heart leaping. Few people ever come to Eleanor's house uninvited. You open it slowly, the hinges groaning. On the steps stands a young boy, no more than 10, his cap too large for his head. He holds out a folded note with grubby fingers. "For you, miss," he says simply before darting away into the street. You unfold the note quickly, the paper rough and smudged. The words are brief, written in a hurried hand. He is not gone. Do not trust what you see. Your blood runs cold. The message isn't signed, the handwriting unfamiliar. You glance out into the street, hoping to catch sight of the boy, but he has vanished into the gathering fog. You close the door quickly, bolting it. The house feels colder now, as though the note has let in more than just the evening air. You sit at the table with the letter before you, reading it again and again. He is not gone. Does it mean James? Someone else? Is it a warning, a lie, or a desperate attempt to unsettle you? The uncertainty gnaws at you, more unsettling than any sound in the night. Later, when the lamps outside flicker weakly, you light the fire again and settle near it, clutching one of Eleanor's books as though its familiar weight might protect you. But even as the flames crackle, your eyes drift constantly toward the window. Any moment, you expect to see the dark figure standing there, watching. And when at last you rise to go to bed, the silence of the house feels sharper than ever. Each step up the stairs echoes louder than it should. Each shadow seems thicker. You pause at the doorway of your room, certain that if you enter, you will not be alone. Yet to stand in the hallway forever is no safer. You force yourself inside, closing the door gently, setting the candle by the bed. For while you sit upright, listening, every sense alert, the flame trembles against the draft, throwing long shapes across the walls. At last, exhaustion forces you to lie down. But as you close your eyes, the memory of the note whispers in your mind. He is not gone. And somewhere in the darkness, just beyond the edge of the candlelight, you are certain something is waiting. You lie awake, staring into the dim corners of the room, listening to the faintest sounds of the house settling. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the shutters feels amplified in the quiet. Sleep refuses to come, and the weight of Eleanor's life presses down on you. The letters, the notes, the glimpses of love and loss. They're all tangled together, forming a story you're only beginning to understand. When the first pale light of morning slips through the lace curtains, you rise with a heaviness in your limbs. The memory of a note delivered by the boy still lingers, a riddle that refuses to fade. He is not gone. Whom could it mean? James? Someone else entirely? Or is it a warning about dangers you have not yet seen? The uncertainty gnaws at you as you dress in Eleanor's simple gown, the fabric still stiff and unfamiliar. Stepping outside, the streets are alive with activity, the familiar smells of bread, coal, and wet stone mixing in the cold morning air. Women hurry along with baskets of laundry and goods. Children dart between the cobblestones, and the occasional horse-drawn cart clatters past. You move among them as Eleanor, yet every glance reminds you of the weight of the label you now carry. A spinster, a woman alone, always observed, always judged. At the market, you hesitate near the fruit stall, considering whether to speak to Mrs. Green. But before you can step forward, another figure catches your eye. A man, older than the boy who delivered the note, stands across the way, his coat buttoned tightly, hat low over his eyes. He does not move as you pass. He does not acknowledge the bustling crowd. His gaze follows you, steady and deliberate. A shiver runs through you. You know immediately that he is connected to the warning, to the darkness that has settled over Eleanor's quiet life. You turn a corner quickly, trying to lose him in the crowd, but the sensation of being watched remains. Every glance over your shoulder confirms it. He is still there, still observing, and you realize that Eleanor's past may not be as settled as you hoped. By mid-afternoon, you retreat to the small library near the chapel, hoping that books might provide a sense of refuge. The keeper greets you with a polite nod, recognizing the familiar presence of a woman who comes alone, seeking knowledge or distraction. You wander the shelves, fingers tracing the spines of novels and journals, seeking something to anchor your thoughts. Charlotte Bronte, George Eliot, the Brontes again, the voices of women navigating loneliness, society's judgment, and the quiet courage of survival. You choose a collection of letters preserved in a bound volume, some dating back decades. As you read, you find echoes of Eleanor's experience, love constrained by duty, choices taken by others, the loneliness of a life shaped by societal expectation. The words resonate deeply, more than you expected. Eleanor's life has been quiet, yes, but not empty. Each letter is a small window into her resilience, into the way she adapted to a world that offered her little choice. Returning home, dusk already settling over the streets, you feel a tension building. The shadows in the room stretch unnaturally, dark corners growing longer with the fading light. You light the fire, setting the kettle on the small stove, yet the warmth does not ease the sense of unease. You glance at the box of letters beneath the chair. That sealed envelope calls to you again, heavy with unspoken words. Hesitantly, you take it out. The wax is brittle now, the color faded, but the seal is still intact. Your fingers tremble as you consider breaking it. Finally, you press gently, cracking the wax. The letter inside is delicate, yellowed, its ink faded with age. As you read, your pulse quickens. The words are a mixture of affection and warning. James had loved Eleanor, yet someone had interfered. Family, circumstance, society's unyielding rules. He had wanted to be with her, yet he had been forced to leave. The letter explains what she never knew. The reasons behind his absence, the pressures that pulled him away, the limitations of a life that belonged to rules rather than to love. Your eyes drift over the final lines, and a chill runs down your spine. There is mention of someone else, a figure who watched, who interfered in ways subtle yet persistent. Someone who lingered near Eleanor, even after James was gone, ensuring that she remained isolated, her life constrained. The words are unclear, fragmented, but the warning in them is unmistakable. Eleanor's solitude was not natural. It was imposed, monitored, and maintained. You hear a creak in the hall and freeze, holding the letter tight. For a moment, everything is still. Then the sound comes again, soft but deliberate, moving closer. You rise cautiously, heart hammering, the firelight flickering against the walls. Your eyes dart to the doorway, to the shadows, but see nothing. The house feels suddenly alive, as though it breathes around you, carrying the weight of Eleanor's secrets. You retreat to the corner near the window, the letter clutched to your chest. The night is thick outside, the fog curling around street lamps, the faint sounds of late passers-by muted by distance. And yet, inside, you feel a presence, unseen, patient, waiting. Whoever has been watching Eleanor, whoever delivered the note, whoever has remained in the shadows, they are here. You sense it. Hours pass. You dare not move from the corner, your hands gripping the letter as though it might provide protection. You read and reread it, trying to understand, to anticipate, to prepare. The words describe a life constrained, a love interrupted, and the vigilance of someone who refused to let Eleanor stray from the path they had set. You realize that the past is not dead. It has not faded with time. It has been waiting, shaping, observing, ensuring that Eleanor's life remained contained. Finally, the clock strikes midnight. The house is silent again, but the tension has not lifted. The candle burns low, casting trembling shadows across the walls. You lie down carefully, the letter beneath your pillow, your eyes fixed on the ceiling. Sleep is uneasy, filled with fragmented images of James, the man in the coat, shadows moving across the cobblestones outside. When you wake, the sunlight is pale and gray. You rise slowly, carrying the weight of the night with you. Today you tell yourself you must act. Eleanor's life cannot remain a mystery. The letters, the note, the silent presence, they demand attention. There is a story here that must be uncovered, a past that must be understood, and a presence that must be confronted. You step outside, the streets cold and damp, your breath rising in thin clouds. The mist has returned, curling around the lampposts, curling around the corners of alleys. Somewhere out there, the figure waits, patient, silent, persistent. The marketplace hums with life, yet you feel detached, as though moving through a world that does not fully see you. As you pass the chapel, a thought strikes. Perhaps the answer lies in the community, in the people who witnessed Eleanor's life quietly passing. Perhaps neighbors, shopkeepers, those who greeted her politely but never truly knew her, hold fragments of the story. And yet, each step brings apprehension. The closer you come to discovering the truth, the more dangerous it feels. Someone does not want this story to be told. Someone has watched and waited to ensure it remains untold. Returning home, you glance at the box beneath the chair. The letters, the sealed envelope, and the fragment of warning now form a puzzle. Eleanor's life, once thought quiet and ordinary, is anything but. Is a life watched, measured, shaped by unseen hands. And now, living as her, you must navigate the same constraints, the same threats, the same secrets that she endured. The day fades into evening, the fire glows softly, and the room grows colder despite the flames. You hear the faintest creak, the whisper of movement from another part of the house. Your breath catches. The presence has returned. It is closer than before, patient and silent. And you know, with a certainty that chills your blood, that Eleanor's story is far from over. Somewhere, in the shadows of the house, in the past hidden in letters and memories, lies the next piece of the puzzle. And as you settle near the fire, heart pounding, eyes wide, you realize that discovering it may be more dangerous than you ever imagined. The night is thick and heavy, pressing against the walls of Eleanor's house. You sit by the fire, the letters laid out before you, each one a thread in a story you are only beginning to understand. The sealed envelope still lies beneath your pillow, its weight almost physical. You know that opening it may change everything, but you hesitate, fearing what truth it might reveal. A sudden noise in the hall makes you freeze. It is soft at first, barely more than a whisper of movement. Then it comes again, closer, deliberate. You grip one of Eleanor's novels, the spine cracking faintly as your hand tightens around it. The candle flickers, casting long, trembling shadows across the room. Whoever is there moves with patience, careful not to alert you too soon. You realize that you are not alone in this house, and you are no longer certain that curiosity will protect you. Hours pass. You try to read, but your eyes cannot focus on the words. Instead, they dart to the doorway, to the shadows, to every corner where the presence might be hiding. Every creak of the floor, every rustle of fabric sets your nerves on edge. Eleanor's quiet life, you understand now, was never truly safe. The letters, the note, the warning, they all point to someone who watched, who interfered, who ensured that she remained isolated. And now, living as her, you are caught in the same web. Morning light breaks gray across the streets, bringing little comfort. You rise, stiff and exhausted, and dress slowly. Eleanor's gown feels heavier now, a tangible reminder of the restrictions placed on her, on the life she was forced to lead. You step outside, the streets bustling with activity, yet your mind is elsewhere. Every passerby, every glance, every whisper carries potential significance. Perhaps they know more than they let on, or perhaps they, too, are part of a world that constrains women like Eleanor. You wander toward the marketplace, seeking distraction but finding only more questions. Mrs. Green nods politely as you pass, and you notice a subtle tension in her eyes. She seems to hesitate, glancing toward the street, then back at you. You wonder if she knows more than she says. Perhaps she witnessed events that Eleanor never spoke of. Perhaps she saw the man who watches from the shadows. You make a mental note to speak to her carefully, to coax answers without alerting anyone who might still be observing. As you continue through the streets, your thoughts return to James. The name appears in letters, in whispers of the past, in the sealed envelope that holds the truth. He loved Eleanor, yet was forced to leave. And now, dead or alive, he is connected to a lingering presence that has haunted this house for years. You feel the weight of generations pressing on you, the rules, the expectations, the secret guardians of society's order. Eleanor's life was not just lonely. It was watched, controlled, manipulated. By mid-afternoon, you find yourself back in the small library. The keeper greets you with polite familiarity, and you drift among the shelves, fingers brushing spines of novels and journals. You seek patterns, hints of the world Eleanor could not escape. The stories speak of women like her, bound by duty, constrained by social expectation, yet quietly resilient. You wonder if Eleanor ever sought solace in these pages, if she felt less alone knowing that others endured similar pressures. Returning home, you step into the parlor and find a bundle of papers left near the fireplace. Someone has been here. The letters are untouched, yet their placement is deliberate. A note lies atop them, written in the same hurried hand as the one delivered by the boy. Seek the past. It will guide you, but beware who watches. Your heart hammers. The house feels suddenly smaller, every shadow more menacing, every whisper of the wind against the shutters louder. Eleanor's life, once thought quiet and ordinary, reveals itself as a landscape of secrets, control, and vigilance. And now, as you live in her body, you are subject to the same rules, the same watchers, the same hidden dangers. Night falls again, and you light the lamps and the fire, but the warmth is faint against the cold tension in your chest. You gather the letters, including the sealed envelope, and sit in the corner near the window. Outside, the mist curls around the lamps, wrapping the street in pale gray. You can almost feel the figure moving through it, patient, silent, unrelenting. Hours pass in uneasy stillness. The candle burns low, shadows trembling across the walls. You imagine Eleanor here long ago, feeling the same uncertainty, the same fear, the same vigilance. Her life was marked by quiet endurance, but also by secrets too dangerous to speak aloud. You realize that the story you are uncovering is not just about love or solitude. It is about control, about unseen hands shaping lives, about threats that linger even in quiet homes. A sudden noise makes you start. It is soft, deliberate, coming from the hallway outside your room. You hold your breath, the letters clutch to your chest, and wait. The sound moves closer, and for a moment, you are certain someone is standing just beyond the door, watching. Then it stops. The silence is heavier than before, thick and suffocating. You rise cautiously, moving toward the door. The hallway is empty. The shadows stretch long, distorted by the flickering firelight. You step lightly, heart pounding, and check each room in turn. All is quiet, yet the unease persists. You feel as though someone has been here, someone who knows the house, who knows Eleanor's habits, who has followed her life closely for years. Returning to the parlor, you glance at the box of letters beneath the chair. The sealed envelope now seems to pulse with meaning, a warning you cannot ignore. You realize that opening it may provide answers, or it may invite danger. You're caught between curiosity and caution, between the desire to uncover Eleanor's truth and the fear of what it may reveal. The night deepens. Outside, the wind rises, rattling the shutters and sweeping the streets with cold fingers. The house creaks and groans, alive with hidden motion. Somewhere, in the corners beyond your sight, a presence lingers. You can sense it, patient and observant, as if it waits for you to make a mistake, to expose yourself, to stumble into the past it has guarded so carefully. Finally, exhaustion pulls at you. You settle near the fire, the letters spread before you, your thoughts racing. Eleanor's life was never ordinary. It was full of hidden pressures, of love constrained by duty, of a constant surveillance that shaped her every action. And now, living as her, you are part of that same story. Sleep comes slowly, in fragments, carrying with it dreams of letters, shadows, and faces half-remembered. You wake again in the gray morning, the mist still curling around the streets, and a sense of being watched stronger than ever. Eleanor's past calls to you, urging you to uncover it, yet warning you that some truths may be more dangerous than the silence she once endured. As you rise to face the day, you know one thing with certainty. The mystery of Eleanor's life is far from resolved, and the presence that haunts this house is still very real. Someone has watched her for years, and now, by stepping into her life, you have become part of that story. And somewhere, in the shadows of the streets, in the corners of the house, that presence waits. Patient, silent, unseen. The morning comes slowly, gray light slipping through the lace curtains and pooling on the wooden floor. You rise carefully, the weight of the previous nights pressing on your shoulders. Every creak of the boards underfoot makes you flinch. Every shadow in the corners of the room feels thicker than it should. Eleanor's house is quiet, deceptively so, yet the note, the sealed letter, and the lingering presence remind you that stillness is never trustable here. You decide to leave the house, to move through the streets, and gather what information you can. The marketplace is alive with activity. Women carrying baskets of vegetables and laundry, children darting between cobblestones, carts rattling as merchants call out their wares. Each face seems ordinary, yet you cannot shake the feeling that someone is watching. The thought clings to you like a shadow. Eleanor's life was never just her own, and now, stepping into it, you feel the same invisible pressure. At the bakery, you linger, pretending to examine the shelves of bread. The baker, a stout man with flour-dusted hands, nods in polite recognition. "Miss Eleanor," he says. His voice is friendly, yet there is a flicker in his eyes, something unspoken. You feel it immediately, a subtle hesitation, the sense that he knows more than he says, that he has observed Eleanor long before you arrived. You ask about small matters, the weather, the quality of the bread, anything to draw him out, but he keeps his words safe and measured. From there, you wander toward the corner where James's name appeared in the chapel records. The church itself is closed, but you examine the steps, the worn stone, the place where parishioners must have passed daily. You imagine Eleanor standing here long ago, waiting for someone who would never return. The thought makes your chest tighten. Love interrupted by duty, by circumstance, by rules that were never meant to be broken. It is the foundation of Eleanor's solitude, the root of the tension that has lingered through decades. As you walk, a small figure emerges from an alleyway. A girl, no older than 12, with a basket of herbs and a shy glance. "Miss Eleanor," she asks softly, clutching her basket to her chest. "My mother says you may know about what happened to Mr. Whitmore." Your heart skips. "What do you mean?" you ask, stepping closer. She glances around nervously, then whispers, "He didn't die the way the records say. My mother, she knew him. She says someone kept him hidden somewhere, and that he watched the house." The words send a chill down your spine. You imagine James, alive after all, or perhaps someone else entirely, bound to Eleanor's life even in secrecy. The girl runs before you can ask more, disappearing into the streets. The information, fragmented and uncertain, presses heavily against your thoughts. Eleanor's solitude now seems part of a larger web, a network of secrets extending beyond her quiet house. Back at home, the box of letters calls to you again. You sit with the sealed envelope, your hands shaking slightly. The knowledge from the girl's words adds a new layer of urgency. The letter may contain explanations, warnings, or names, something that could illuminate the truth about who watched Eleanor and why. Yet the risk of opening it is undeniable. Whoever sent the notes, whoever watches from shadows, may still be near. You hear it then, a soft creak from the hallway outside your room. Heart hammering, you clutch the envelope, forcing yourself to remain calm. The sound moves, deliberate, slow. Your imagination races. Is it the girl returning? The watcher? Something else. Something bound to Eleanor's past that has followed her for years? The house feels suddenly smaller, more oppressive, the shadows thicker. You rise cautiously, moving toward the door, but stop midway, considering another approach. Eleanor herself would have navigated these moments with caution, perhaps patience. You decide to check the parlor first, stepping lightly, the letter pressed to your chest. The room is empty, but on the table lie more papers, drawings, sketches, notes, fragments of Eleanor's mind and daily routines. Someone has been here, observing, leaving breadcrumbs or perhaps warnings. Hours pass as you examine the notes. You begin to piece together subplots of Eleanor's life that you had only glimpsed in letters. The neighbor who quietly protected her from gossip, the family friend who attempted to arrange matches she never wanted, the mysterious visitors who came and went at odd hours, never speaking but always watching. Each detail deepens the complexity of her life, the tension that has followed her into the quiet rooms of her home. By evening, the mist returns, curling around the streets, pressing against windows and doors. You light the fire, but the warmth feels distant, insufficient. You sit with the letters again, reading passages aloud to hear them in the voice that is now yours. Eleanor's words reveal a woman of patience, of resilience, yet also of careful calculation, living under constant scrutiny and invisible threats. Her life was a balance of maintaining dignity while avoiding the eyes that might cause ruin. A knock at the door interrupts your reading. Your heart leaps into your throat. No one comes to Eleanor's home uninvited. You approach slowly, opening the door just enough to see a man standing outside, tall, hat low over his eyes, coat buttoned tightly. His presence is familiar, yet unsettling. The streets are empty, the fog curling around him, isolating him in the gray twilight. "Miss Eleanor," he says quietly, his voice carrying a strange mixture of urgency and caution. "There are things you do not know, things you are not meant to uncover." You step back, unsure whether to invite him in or retreat. He raises a hand slightly, as though to calm you. "I only wish to guide you," he says, his tone soft but firm. Eleanor's life, it was more complicated than the letters reveal. There are forces at work that you cannot yet see. Some of them still linger. Your mind races. The letters, the notes, the presence in the house, the girl's warning, they are all connected. Eleanor's life was never simple. The secrecy, the surveillance, the isolation, it was all intentional, shaped by people who held power over her choices. And now, living as her, you are drawn into the same network of observation and manipulation. He steps closer, lowering his voice further. Do not trust everything you read. Do not trust what appears to be safe. Eleanor was clever, but cleverness alone could not protect her from those who watched, those who waited. You must be careful. Before you can ask more, he turns and disappears into the fog, leaving only the faint impression of movement in the air. You close the door slowly, heart racing, mind spinning. The house is quiet again, but the warning lingers. Eleanor's life was a labyrinth of secrecy, love, obligation, and surveillance. And now, you are inside it. The letters call to you once more, their weight pressing on your mind. You sit near the fire, the candle flickering, and read, searching for patterns, names, clues. Each word feels like a thread in a tangled web, pulling you deeper into Eleanor's world. The man, the notes, the girl, the watcher, all parts of a story that refuses to let go. Night descends, thick and unyielding. You light a lamp, the soft glow illuminating the room, yet shadows still stretch across the walls, longer than they should, deeper than they should. The presence in the house feels closer, patient, waiting. Whoever has watched Eleanor for decades has not gone. And now, by stepping into her life, you have entered the center of a story filled with secrets, unspoken truths, and dangers that have lain hidden for years. You lie awake, listening to the creaks, the whispers of the wind, and the distant sounds of the street. Sleep is uneasy, filled with fragmented images of letters, shadows, and faces half-remembered. The tension tightens in your chest, the knowledge pressing. Eleanor's life was never just lonely. It was watched, manipulated, and constrained. And now, living as her, you're caught in the same web, navigating a past that refuses to rest, with unseen eyes following every step. The night stretches on, and in the quiet, you realize that the secrets Eleanor carried, the pressure she endured, and the watchers who lingered will not reveal themselves easily. Every letter, every note, every shadow may hold the next piece of the puzzle, but also the next danger. The mystery is far from resolved, and the story you have stepped into is far from complete. The house settles around you. The fire crackles softly, and outside, the mist curls endlessly. The watcher waits. The letters call. And Eleanor's life, with all its hidden burdens and quiet resilience, continues to unfold. Now through your eyes, now through your presence, now under the gaze of forces that refuse to be ignored. The morning mist clings to the streets like a memory that refuses to fade. You rise slowly, the ache in your limbs a reminder of the restless night. Every sound in Eleanor's house, the groan of the floorboards, the faint whistle of wind through a crack in the shutters, carries a weight you cannot shake. It is as if the house itself remembers all that has happened within it, all that has been watched, all that has been hidden. Determined to find answers, you decide to explore the neighborhood, to speak carefully with the people who may have known Eleanor, or who may have glimpsed the hidden currents of her life. The streets are alive, bustling with women balancing baskets of laundry and vegetables, men pushing carts, and children darting across cobblestones. Every face is familiar, yet every glance feels layered with subtle curiosity, perhaps even caution. A life like Eleanor's never existed in isolation. It always intersected with others, and you sense that these intersections hold secrets waiting to be discovered. You stop first at Mrs. Green's stall in the marketplace. She is busy arranging loaves of bread, but she glances up as you approach. "Miss Eleanor," she says politely, though there's a hint of something unsaid in her tone. You smile, careful not to betray the urgency in your mind. "I wonder if you might help me," you say gently. "I've been trying to understand the neighborhood, the people, the life Eleanor once led here. Anything you remember could help." Mrs. Green hesitates, glancing around as though someone might be listening. "Well, there were many eyes," she begins cautiously. "Some friends, some not so friendly. Eleanor," she was careful, always careful, and there were those who watched her more than they should. You leaned closer, intrigued. Who watched her? Did they mean harm? The woman's lips pressed together. Some did, some, well, it's hard to say. There was a man, sometimes seen in the square, who paid particular attention, and others, quieter, who spoke little but always observed. A life like hers, it draws attention, sometimes not the kind you wish for. Her words send a shiver down your spine. The letters, the notes, the shadowed presence. They were not figments of imagination. They were real, woven into the very fabric of Eleanor's existence. And now, as you inhabit her life, they have become yours as well. You thank Mrs. Green and move on, the marketplace fading behind you as you wander toward the outskirts of the neighborhood. Narrow alleys twist and bend, and you notice small details. A shutter left slightly ajar, a footprint in the mud that seems fresher than it should, the distant echo of a card on cobblestones. Everything feels deliberate, as if someone has prepared the environment to reveal only certain things, to hide others. Eleanor's careful world now stretches before you, complex and dangerous, with secrets layered beneath every ordinary moment. By mid-afternoon, you find yourself standing outside a small, weathered house that Eleanor had mentioned in her letters, a home belonging to a distant cousin. The windows are curtained, but faint movement behind them suggests someone is inside. You knock lightly, unsure what to expect. A woman opens the door, her eyes sharp yet cautious. "Yes," she asks. Eleanor's housekeeper or friend." You hesitate, then continue carefully. "I've been going through some of her letters and her life. I was hoping you might remember things, anything at all, that could help me understand her." Her gaze flickers with recognition. "Eleanor, yes. I knew her a little. Quiet girl, clever, always careful. And yes, there were things she never spoke aloud. Things some of us try to protect her from, but not everything can be stopped. Some people, they wanted to keep her contained, keep her life small, manageable." You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach. The network of people, watchers, and obstacles that shaped Eleanor's life is bigger than you realized. Her isolation was not just circumstance. It was orchestrated, maintained by forces both visible and invisible. "Do you know who?" you ask carefully. "Who kept watch? Who interfered?" The woman shakes her head, lips pressed tight. "Names are dangerous, but some still linger. Some remember. Be careful who you trust. Eleanor's world, it is not gone. It still waits, and it is patient." You leave the house with more questions than answers, the warning echoing in your mind. Eleanor's life was a delicate web of secrecy and observation. Each step she took was measured, each word carefully chosen. And now, inhabiting her, you must navigate the same hidden pressures, the same unseen eyes, and the same persistent vigilance. Back at Eleanor's house, the letters lie before you, and the sealed envelope seems heavier than ever. The knowledge you've gathered, Mrs. Green's hints, the distant cousin's warnings, the girl's cryptic words about James, presses insistently on your mind. Opening the envelope may reveal more, perhaps the truth about who watched Eleanor and why. Yet the risk is undeniable. Whoever has been monitoring her, whoever left the notes, may still be near, watching for any sign that you are uncovering the past. The evening settles, thick with fog curling around the house. You light the fire and a lamp. Yet warmth does not dispel the tension. The shadows stretch across the room, and you feel a presence beyond the walls, patient and unyielding. The air itself seems to hold a secret, a weight pressing silently. You glance at the envelope, torn between curiosity and caution, wondering if Eleanor herself ever faced this exact moment, standing on the threshold of discovery, knowing that the truth could bring both clarity and danger. A sudden knock at the door makes your heart leap. You move carefully, peering through the peephole. A figure stands outside, partially obscured by the mist. A man, tall, coat buttoned, hat low over his eyes. There is something familiar in his stance, a deliberate patience. "Miss Eleanor," he says quietly, voice measured. "You are looking for answers. Some can be found, some cannot. Be careful. For curiosity can lead to dangers one is not prepared for. You step back, hesitant, heart hammering. The man's presence confirms your growing realization. Eleanor's life was watched, influenced, and constrained by forces that have not gone away. And now, by stepping into her life, you have become a part of the same story, subject to the same pressures, the same unseen eyes. He does not wait for a response. With deliberate care, he turns and disappears into the fog, leaving only the faint impression of movement and a lingering sense of urgency. You close the door slowly, heart racing, realizing that Eleanor's past and present are intertwined in ways you cannot yet untangle. The house is silent again, yet the tension remains. The letters call to you, promising fragments of truth, hints of the unseen forces, and glimpses into Eleanor's resilience. You sit by the fire, reading and rereading, piecing together the subplots of her life. The neighbors who watched discreetly, the family who imposed limits, the unknown figures whose presence shaped every choice. The letters reveal a network of influence and surveillance that has spanned years, a quiet yet persistent web that now ensnares you as well. Night falls, thick and unrelenting. You lie in bed, the sealed envelope beneath your pillow, heart hammering as your mind races. Sleep comes only in fragments, dreams filled with shadows, letters, faces half-remembered, and the persistent awareness that someone, something, is watching. Eleanor's life was never ordinary, and now, living as her, you are caught in the same web. The tension in the house deepens, pressing against your senses. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains, carries weight. The letters, the notes, the warnings, they form a pattern that is only partially visible, leaving you both anxious and compelled. Eleanor's life, carefully constructed and silently constrained, is revealing itself in fragments, and you realize that understanding it fully will require courage, patience, and vigilance. As the candle burns low, you sit with the letters, the envelope, and the knowledge that the presence in the house is patient, waiting, and unyielding. Eleanor's past, full of secrets and quiet resilience, is now your present. And you know, with a certainty that tightens your chest, that the story is far from over, the conflicts far from resolved, and the mysteries that haunt this house are only beginning to unfold. The dawn breaks slowly, pale and gray, filtering through the lace curtains with a chill that seeps into the room. You rise, stiff from a restless night, the weight of Eleanor's life pressing down on your shoulders. Every sound, the groan of the floorboards, the faint whisper of wind through cracks in the shutters, feels magnified, heavy with the memory of those who watched her, who guided her life in ways she could not resist. You realize now that stepping into Eleanor's shoes means stepping into a world layered with subtle threats and quiet control. You decide to revisit the marketplace, hoping for clues hidden in plain sight. The streets are alive with movement. Women balancing baskets of produce, children darting between carts, and men hurrying along with work to do. Each passerby seems ordinary, yet you can't shake the feeling that your movements are being observed. Eleanor's existence was never fully her own, and the invisible watchfulness of her life has not vanished. At the edge of the market, you spot a familiar figure, the young girl who delivered the cryptic message days before. She carries her basket of herbs, glancing around nervously as if aware of unseen eyes. When she notices you, she pauses. "Miss Eleanor," she whispers, her voice low, almost a tremor. "There's something you should know about James, about who really watched your house." Your pulse quickens. "Tell me," you urge, keeping your voice as calm as possible. She shakes her head, glancing over her shoulder. "Not here. Too many listen. Meet me by the chapel steps at sundown. Alone. If you want to know the truth, you must be cautious." Before you can respond, she disappears into the crowd, leaving you with the weight of her words. The mention of James, the Watcher, and hidden truths adds urgency to everything you've uncovered. Eleanor's life was never merely lonely. It was observed, manipulated, and constrained by forces you are only beginning to understand. The day passes slowly, filled with careful observations. You wander the streets, noting small details: a shutter left slightly ajar, a footprint in damp earth, a glance from a passerby that lingers too long. The neighborhood seems ordinary, yet Eleanor's letters hint at a deeper web of connections, hidden vigilance, and subtle interference that shaped her entire life. It is clear that uncovering her past requires patience and extreme caution. As evening approaches, you make your way to the chapel steps. The girl is already there, a shadow among the fog, clutching her basket tightly. She looks around nervously before speaking. "James, he didn't leave entirely," she says quietly. "Someone made sure he stayed hidden, watching over your house, ensuring things remained the way they wanted. Eleanor, she didn't know everything, but some of us did." The revelation chills you. The presence in Eleanor's house, the letters, the warnings, they were part of a carefully maintained system. A network of watchers, guardians, and perhaps manipulators, all ensuring that her life remained contained, controlled, and predictable. And now, inhabiting her life, you are subject to the same surveillance, the same pressures, and the same hidden forces. "What do you mean someone made sure he stayed hidden?" you ask, your voice barely above a whisper. The girl hesitates. "There were people, men, mostly. Some call them protectors, others enforcers. They watched, they waited, and sometimes they interfered. James, he wanted to reach her, but he couldn't. And anyone who might have helped her, they were discouraged, warned away, or worse. You have to understand, Eleanor's life was controlled in ways she couldn't see." You nod slowly, absorbing the information. Each piece fits into a growing puzzle. Letters that hinted at missing truths, notes delivered with care, the persistent sense of being observed. Eleanor's solitude was not simply the result of circumstance. It was enforced, maintained, and monitored by invisible hands. As darkness settles over the streets, the girl slips away, leaving you alone on the chapel steps. The fog curls around the lamp posts, obscuring the edges of the world. Every shadow feels alive, every rustle of wind in the trees amplified by your awareness. Eleanor's house, the letters, the notes, the watchers, they're all part of a story that stretches beyond walls, beyond time, and now beyond your understanding. Returning home, you find the house quiet, almost unnervingly so. The fire is low, and the shadows stretch across the room, deeper and more distorted than daylight allowed. You gather the letters and sit near the hearth, heart hammering, mind racing. The sealed envelope waits, a promise and a warning. Its contents could explain the hidden pressures, the watchers, and the control exerted over Eleanor's life. Or it could draw the attention of those who have been watching her for decades. Hours pass. You read and reread the letters, piecing together Eleanor's past. Neighbors who offered discreet protection, distant relatives who imposed limitations, visitors who came silently, leaving no trace but an undeniable presence. Each detail reveals a network of influence and surveillance that has endured through the years, patiently maintaining the status quo of Eleanor's quiet life. Then, a soft creak from the hallway interrupts your concentration. You freeze, heart pounding, gripping the letters tightly. The sound comes again, deliberate, cautious, moving closer. Your mind spins with possibilities. A watcher, a protector, someone from Eleanor's past returning to ensure her life remains contained. You rise slowly, moving toward the door, careful not to make noise. The hallway is empty. The shadows stretch along the walls, distorted by the flickering firelight. You move through the house, checking each room in turn. All is quiet, yet the tension persists, thick and suffocating. The presence is there, patient, observant, a reminder that Eleanor's life, and now yours, is under constant watch. By the time you return to the parlor, the envelope seems heavier than ever. You sit near the fire, weighing the risks of opening it. Eleanor's life, you realize, was full of secrets carefully concealed. Love interrupted by duty, surveillance maintained by unknown forces, a web of influence that ensured her solitude. Now, stepping into her life, you must navigate the same labyrinth of observation, secrecy, and control. The night deepens, and the mist returns, curling around the house, pressing against windows and doors. You light a lamp, but the warmth does little to ease the tension. The shadows stretch long, reaching into corners you cannot see, and the presence in the house feels closer, patient, and unyielding. Whoever has been watching Eleanor, ensuring her life remained confined, has not gone. They wait, silent, just beyond your perception. Sleep comes in fragments, filled with dreams of letters, shadows, and half-remembered faces. You wake, heart hammering, aware of every creak, every whisper of wind, every shadow that moves too deliberately. Eleanor's life was never simple, and now, living as her, you are caught in the same network of control, vigilance, and hidden observation. Morning arrives pale and gray. The streets outside are damp and empty, and the fog swirls around lampposts like the ghosts of secrets past. You rise, aware that today, more than ever, you must move carefully. Eleanor's life, so long constrained and monitored, is revealing itself in pieces, and each revelation brings both understanding and danger. You gather the letters, the notes, and the sealed envelope, preparing to uncover the next layer of Eleanor's story. The unseen watchers, the cryptic messages, and the hidden forces shaping her life are all part of a web that stretches beyond her home, beyond her time, and now into your own existence. And as you step out into the misty streets, you know one thing for certain. Eleanor's story is far from over. The conflicts are far from resolved, and the secrets that haunt this house will continue to unfold, patient, persistent, and ever watchful. The fog hangs heavy over the streets, curling around lampposts and muffling the usual sounds of morning life. You move cautiously through the quiet neighborhood, the letters pressed against your chest, the sealed envelope a constant weight at your side. Each step feels measured, every shadow a possible threat. Eleanor's world, once hidden behind polite smiles and quiet routines, has revealed itself to be far more dangerous and complex than you could have imagined. You make your way back to the chapel, following the path where the girl had first warned you. The mist swirls around your ankles, cold and damp, and the silence is thick enough to feel like a presence pressing against your chest. You wonder if the watchers are near, observing from the fog, ensuring that every move is noted, every gesture interpreted. Eleanor's life was never private, never entirely her own, and now it seems the same applies to you. At the chapel steps, the girl waits, her basket tucked tightly under her arm. She glances around nervously before speaking. "You shouldn't have come alone," she says softly, her voice trembling. "They know you're here. You're being followed. Every move you make, someone is watching." A chill runs down your spine. "Oh," you ask, forcing your voice to stay calm. She shakes her head. "I don't know all their names, but they are patient. They've been waiting years, decades, even, to make sure things stay the way they want." Eleanor, she tried to resist in small ways, quietly, but she couldn't escape. And now, you've stepped into her life. The weight of her words presses on you, and you realize that Eleanor's solitude, her careful routines, were not mere happenstance. They were survival. Every letter you've read, every note you've received, every shadow you felt was part of a system that controlled her life, constrained her choices, and observed her every move. Suddenly, a sound breaks through the mist, a soft footstep, deliberate and slow, echoing against the stone steps. You glance up, heart hammering. A figure emerges from the fog, tall and silent, coat buttoned tightly, hat low over their eyes. They move with purpose, and every instinct in you screams that this is no ordinary passerby. The girl steps back, fear evident in her small frame. "Go," she whispers urgently. "Not here. Not now. You want to run, but your feet feel rooted to the ground." The figure stops a few feet away, tilting their head slightly, watching. The tension is unbearable, thick in the cold air. You realize with a jolt that this is not a chance encounter. Whoever this is, They are part of the network Eleanor warned about, the unseen presence that shaped her life. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure says quietly, voice carrying a strange authority. "Some things are not meant to be uncovered. Some truths are dangerous." Eleanor knew this, and she lived her life carefully, measured in every step. You swallow hard, trying to steady your racing heart. "I need to know," you say. "I need to understand what she went through. I need to know why her life was controlled, watched, constrained." The figure tilts their head again, silent for a long moment. "You are brave or foolish. Time will tell. But know this, curiosity can be as dangerous as the watchers themselves. You are treading on a history of secrecy, patience, and silent observation. Every choice you make, every move you take has consequences." Your mind races. The letters, the notes, the warnings from the girl, the glimpses of the past, they all lead to this moment. The tension that is built over days and nights, over streets shrouded in fog, and homes steeped in quiet observation, has reached a peak. Every instinct screams that the life Eleanor led, the surveillance she endured, the hidden pressure she navigated, are all converging on you now. A sudden movement catches your eye from the corner of the foggy square. Another figure appears, smaller, shadowed, almost blending into the mist. Your breath catches. Two sets of watchers, converging silently, their intentions unclear. The air is electric with anticipation, the quiet before a storm that could erupt at any second. The girl's voice breaks through your focus. "Go back," she urges, clutching your sleeve. "Do not stay here. They've been waiting, but if you move carefully, maybe you can survive this night." You hesitate, torn between fleeing and seeking the truth. Eleanor's life, full of secrets and careful strategies, calls to you. Her resilience, her quiet courage, her attempts to navigate the unseen pressures. These are lessons and warnings, urging you forward, yet cautioning against recklessness. The taller figure steps closer, and the fog seems to thicken around them, obscuring the edges of reality. You can sense their awareness, their patience, their observations stretching beyond the square, beyond the streets, beyond the house where you have spent days piecing together Eleanor's life. Every instinct tells you that you are now at the center of a story far larger than yourself, a story of secrecy, vigilance, and hidden influence that has endured for decades. Your hand rests on the sealed envelope at your side. Its weight is almost unbearable now, a promise of answers and a warning of consequences. You realize that opening it may illuminate the mysteries of Eleanor's life, the watchers, James, the hidden pressures, the constrained choices, but it could also draw the attention of those who have been patient for years, waiting for anyone who dared step into her world. The tension coils in your chest, and you are aware of every heartbeat, every breath. The mist swirls around you. The figures in the fog remain motionless yet alive with intent, and the chapel steps, once quiet and harmless, have become the stage for a confrontation long anticipated. Eleanor's past, with all its careful vigilance and quiet fear, presses down on you, and the consequences of your next moves are impossible to predict. For a long moment, silence hangs. Then the taller figure speaks again, voice low but carrying through the fog. The past is patient. The watchers are patient. And now, you are not invisible. Every step, every thought, every choice will be noticed. You may find the truth, or you may find danger. There is no turning back now. The girl's hand grips yours, small and trembling. "Please," she whispers, "listen to me. Whatever you do, do not underestimate them. They're not gone. They never leave." Your heart hammers as you stand at the edge of the square, enveloped by fog, shadow, and anticipation. The letters, the sealed envelope, the warnings, the watchers, all converge in this moment. Every secret Eleanor carried, every careful choice she made, every hidden thread of her life is now alive around you. The tension has reached its peak, and just as you take a step forward, the taller figure moves, the mist shifting around them like a living thing. The second figure steps closer from the shadows, and the air seems to tighten, heavy with expectation. Every instinct screams that the climax of this story, the confrontation with the unseen pressures that have shaped Eleanor's life, is about to unfold. Your hand tightens around the envelope, your mind races, and for the first time, you truly understand the weight of Eleanor's existence, the surveillance, the control, the hidden networks that shaped her every step. And now, you are in the center of it all, facing the culmination of tensions built over decades, with danger, secrets, and revelations pressing from every direction. The fog curls higher, swallowing the edges of the square. The watchers stand patiently, impossibly still yet alive with intent. The girl's eyes are wide, full of fear and urgency, and you realize that whatever happens next will not just reveal Eleanor's past. It will test your courage, your perception, and your ability to navigate a web far older and more dangerous than you could have imagined. The night seems to hold its breath. Every heartbeat echoes in your chest. Every shadow stretches, waiting. Every secret Eleanor carried now looms in the mist, threatening to consume you if you falter. And in that frozen, tense moment, you understand with stark clarity. The climax is here, the confrontation inevitable, and the resolution is not yet in your hands. The fog swirled thicker now, curling around lampposts and cobblestones, turning familiar streets into a maze of uncertainty. Your heart pounded, each beat echoing in the mist-heavy silence, and every instinct told you to retreat, but retreat was no longer an option. Eleanor's life, her secrets, and the watchers she had long feared had drawn you into a web far larger than you had imagined. And now, just when you thought you understood the boundaries of danger, something unexpected shifted in the shadows. From the corner of your eye, movement caught your attention. A figure emerged, slower than the watchers you had seen before, yet deliberate, purposeful. Unlike the tall, silent man you had confronted earlier, this newcomer carried an air of familiarity, a subtle hesitation in their steps, as if they knew Eleanor, or perhaps you, better than you realized. The mist wrapped around them, concealing details, but something in their presence made your stomach tighten. "They're not alone," the girl whispered sharply, clutching your arm. Her voice trembled, urgency woven through every word. "Someone else, someone who's been in the background all along. They weren't watching to protect, they were waiting for something. Waiting for you." Your pulse accelerated. The letters, the notes, the sealed envelope, the warnings, they had all prepared you for confrontation, but never for this. A second layer of the story had emerged, one that hinted at betrayal and hidden motives. Eleanor's life, full of careful routines and quiet observation, had concealed more than you imagined. And now, that hidden layer was revealing itself in real time. The newcomer stepped closer, fog swirling around their boots. You caught a glimpse of their face, a woman, older than you expected, with eyes sharp and calculating, framed by wisps of gray hair. Recognition struck like a jolt. One of Eleanor's trusted acquaintances, someone mentioned in passing in her letters, but never fully explained. Eleanor had written of her with respect, a voice of caution and guidance, but the words had always been tinged with uncertainty. Now, standing before you, the ambiguity of those past letters became real and unsettling. "You shouldn't be here," the woman said, voice calm but edged with steel. "You don't understand what you've stepped into." Eleanor's life, it was carefully balanced between safety and exposure. And you, by moving into her world, have tipped that balance. You swallow hard, trying to steady your racing thoughts. "I need to know the truth," you say, gripping the sealed envelope. Everything she endured, everything that was hidden from her. "I need to understand it." The woman's lips tighten, a fleeting flash of something unreadable crossing her face. "Do you think Eleanor's struggles were just personal, just private? There are forces at work beyond this neighborhood, beyond these streets. Things Eleanor never spoke of. And now, they know someone is digging. Someone is stepping into her story. That someone is you." A cold wave of realization hits you. The watchers, the letters, the hidden surveillance. It wasn't just local curiosity or protective neighbors. Eleanor's life had intersected with a network far more intricate, far more dangerous. The tension that had been building for days escalates sharply. Everything you had thought you understood about her isolation, her careful choices, and her hidden pressures now shifts under a new light. The girl steps back, whispering urgently. She's telling the truth. There are others. People who won't let secrets slip, who have waited years to see what happens when someone tries to uncover the past. And you're in the center. Your mind races. Every letter, every note, every cautionary message suddenly feels like part of a layered trap. The tension coils tighter. Eleanor's life was not just controlled. It was curated, monitored, and protected against intrusions she may never have known existed. And now, by stepping into her shoes, you have become both the subject and the target of this hidden network. The fog shifts again, and you catch movement in the distance, a shadow that seems to pulse with intent, slowly approaching. The watchers you had already encountered, the tall, silent man, seems to have multiplied in your mind, each echo of movement a potential threat. The air is thick with anticipation, fear, and adrenaline. You clutch the letters tighter, the envelope weighing heavily against your chest, knowing that its secrets could illuminate everything, or draw the attention of forces far more dangerous than you have yet seen. Suddenly, the older woman steps closer, lowering her voice. There's something you must understand before it's too late. Eleanor's world was layered, hidden from most, observed by few. But even in her careful life, there were fractures, points where the watchers disagreed, where the balance could shift. And now, that balance is shifting again. Because you are here. The words land like stones in your chest. Eleanor's careful, measured existence was built on compromise, observation, and patience. Yet the new layer of conflict, the woman's warnings, the hints of external forces, and the suggestion of disagreement among the watchers, reveals that her life was far more fragile than it seemed. The girl tugs at your sleeve, eyes wide with fear. You have to decide quickly. Stay, and you may uncover truths that could be dangerous. Leave, and you may escape, but the risk of being followed, watched, or worse, it doesn't vanish. You glance at the sealed envelope, feeling its weight more keenly than ever. The letters and notes that had guided you to this moment now seem like pieces of a puzzle that may never be fully safe to assemble. Every instinct warns that opening it, or taking the wrong step, could provoke consequences you're not prepared for. The mist swirls tighter, and the shadows around you deepen. The older woman's eyes never leave yours, sharp and unwavering. She steps aside slightly, revealing movement in the fog, a subtle shift that hints at more figures lurking just out of view, waiting, patient, silent. The stakes have escalated beyond anything you anticipated. Eleanor's life, once a story of careful solitude and hidden pressures, has revealed itself to be a nexus of unseen forces, conflicting interests, and persistent surveillance. And now, inhabiting her existence, you are caught in a network that stretches far beyond the neighborhood, beyond the letters, and beyond the shadows you can see. Your heartbeat pounds in your ears as the fog thickens and the watcher's presence becomes almost tangible. Every instinct tells you that the next steps you take, opening the envelope, confronting the figures, or moving through the misty streets, will determine how deeply you are entangled in the hidden conflicts of Eleanor's life. The tension coils impossibly tight. The watchers, the letters, the girl's warnings, the older woman's revelation. They all converge in this single, charged moment. And as the fog swirls and the shadows stretch, you realize with a clarity that chills you. Eleanor's secrets are no longer contained. They are alive, pulsing around you, waiting to see whether the next choice will uncover the truth or unleash consequences that have been patiently awaiting for decades. You take a deep breath, the weight of the letters, the envelope, and the moment pressing down. The climax is approaching, though the resolution is still beyond reach. Every step, every word, every glance now carries significance. The story that began as curiosity, as exploration of a Victorian spinster's life, has transformed into a complex, dangerous dance with forces that have long remained hidden. And in the silence of the foggy square, surrounded by shadows and watchers, you realize the second twist has arrived. Eleanor's life was not just watched, it was contested. And now, you're the one standing in the middle of the struggle, with secrets that may protect or endanger you, and a climax that is drawing near, heavy with tension, peril, and revelation yet to come. The fog had thinned just enough to reveal shapes in the square, but the tension did not ease. Every step felt heavier, each breath sharper, as if the mist itself carried the weight of Eleanor's secrets. You clutched the envelope tightly, knowing that whatever lay inside would either illuminate the past or pull you deeper into the web that had ensnared her life. The older woman and the watchers stood patiently, like statues of judgment, their presence commanding attention, their intentions hidden behind measured expressions. Finally, you made a choice. With trembling hands, you broke the seal of the envelope and unfolded the paper within. The script was elegant but precise, Eleanor's handwriting careful and deliberate. It revealed names, events, and alliances you hadn't yet imagined. A secret network of neighbors, relatives, and even outsiders who had influenced her life, some to protect, others to control. But the most shocking revelation was James. He had been close all along, not merely a distant admirer or a benign observer, but someone who had tried to communicate warnings, hiding in plain sight to keep her safe from a threat neither of them had fully understood. The watchers shifted subtly, reacting to your discovery as though they, too, had been waiting for this moment. The older woman stepped forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. "So you know now," she said quietly. "You've uncovered the truth Eleanor feared revealing, and you've made yourself part of it. You cannot unsee what you know." Fear and adrenaline surged together. You realized the letters, the careful instructions, and the warnings were not just reflections of Eleanor's careful life. They were a strategy, a puzzle left for anyone who might inherit her world. And now you held the key. Suddenly, movement from the fog drew your attention. James emerged, older than you had imagined, his eyes carrying a mixture of relief and urgency. "You shouldn't have come alone," he said, voice low but intense. "But now that you're here, there's no turning back. You have to act, and quickly." Your pulse raced as the older woman's presence seemed to challenge him, her posture taut with authority. The tension coiled to its breaking point. You realized that the story Eleanor had written, the life she had lived in measured caution, was collapsing into a confrontation that had been decades in the making. Allies, protectors, and watchers were all converging, their conflicting interests now visible in the misty square. James moved closer, lowering his voice to you alone. "They don't want the truth known. But the letters, the notes, they were meant to guide someone who could understand the stakes. That someone is you. You must choose who to trust, who to reveal the secrets to, or everything Eleanor tried to protect could be lost." The older woman's voice cut through the fog. "Do not underestimate us," she warned. The balance Eleanor maintained was delicate. One wrong step, and the entire network unravels. Heart pounding, you weighed your options. Opening the envelope had given you the truth, but it had also drawn the attention of forces who had remained hidden for years. You had stepped fully into Eleanor's life, and now your actions would determine the outcome of conflicts that had been quietly raging for decades. Then, in an instant, the fog shifted again, revealing a final figure, smaller, quiet, previously unnoticed. The girl who had first warned you stood there, holding a folded letter of her own. "There's one more thing," she said, eyes wide with urgency. "Something Eleanor didn't know herself. Someone among you is not what they seem. One of the watchers has been working against her all along." Time seemed to freeze. The realization hit you like ice. The tension, already unbearable, spiked to its peak. Every glance between James, the older woman, and the watchers now carried layers of suspicion, betrayal, and urgency. The delicate balance of Eleanor's carefully constructed world had been shattered, revealing not just the truth, but hidden deception within the very network that had defined her life. You felt the weight of Eleanor's legacy pressing down, the responsibility of knowing more than she had revealed, the pressure of navigating this intricate web. One choice, one misstep, could tip the outcome irreversibly. You must act now, James urged, stepping closer. The one betraying Eleanor's memory will strike if they think they can silence us. You know the truth. You have to decide how it will be used. The older woman's eyes darted toward the shadows where the other watchers had gathered, tension tight across her face. "We cannot afford hesitation," she said, voice low but commanding. "The network must remain intact. Everything Eleanor built, everything she protected, hangs by a thread." Your mind raced. The letters, the notes, the warnings, they were no longer just history. They were active, alive, and intertwined with decisions you are now forced to make. The mist swirled around you, the watchers frozen, each waiting for your next move, the unseen betrayal still lurking, and the stakes higher than ever. You finally spoke, voice steady despite the tremor in your chest. "I know the truth. I know what Eleanor endured, what she protected, and who she trusted. And I know there's someone here working against her memory. I will act, but you all must step aside. The secrets belong to her, and now to me." A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant echo of footsteps in the fog. The older woman's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, a flicker of acknowledgement passing through her eyes. James's expression shifted, hope mingled with apprehension. And in the mist, the figure of the betrayer hesitated, revealed only by the faintest movement, just long enough for you to see their eyes, cold and calculating, before they melted back into the fog. The climax had arrived. The truth laid bare, the networks of observation and secrecy exposed, the betrayal revealed, but the final act, the last layer of suspense, remained. Eleanor's life, long constrained and measured, had taught patience, caution, and resilience. And now, standing in her shoes, you understood that even in revelation, the shadows hold secrets, and even in resolution, the story is never truly finished. The fog began to lift, pale morning light brushing the square, yet the tension lingered, a reminder that the watchers are patient, secrets are persistent, and even the bravest choices carry consequences beyond understanding. The story had reached its climax, the conflicts confronted, the secrets unveiled. But the final twist, the revelation that one among the observers had shifted loyalties, hinted that the legacy of Eleanor's life, her struggles, and her resilience would echo long after this night. You take a step back, the letters and the envelope still in hand, heart racing. The watchers remain, now silent, their intentions partially revealed, but still cloaked in mystery. James glances at you, nodding faintly, and the older woman finally relaxes, just enough to suggest that while one chapter is closed, the story's echoes will continue to resonate. And in that moment, with the fog dissolving and the first rays of dawn piercing the square, you realize Eleanor's life was never simple, her secrets never truly contained, and the world she navigated, the world you now inhabit, is more intricate, more dangerous, and more extraordinary than you could have imagined. The fog had finally lifted, leaving the streets pale under the first light of morning. The watchers, James, the older woman, and even the girl who had guided you through Eleanor's hidden world, lingered at a distance, their shadows stretching across cobblestones still damp with mist. The tension that had gripped the square for hours began to dissolve, replaced by a fragile sense of understanding. The truth of Eleanor's life had been revealed, the network of hidden observers and secret alliances exposed, and yet the complexity of her world lingered in your mind, leaving a mixture of awe, relief, and lingering curiosity. You looked down at the letters in your hands, the sealed envelope, now open and empty of its final revelations. Eleanor's words, carefully written across the years, had guided you through her life's intricacies. They told of patience, quiet courage, and survival in a world that constantly sought to limit her freedom. The warnings she had left were not meant to frighten, but to instruct, to provide insight into how to navigate life carefully, how to observe, how to act with both prudence and resolve. And now, inhabiting her existence, you had walked through that guidance, tested yourself, and emerged with a deeper understanding of her resilience. James stepped forward, his face softened with relief, though the shadow of concern still lingered in his eyes. "You've done what Eleanor could not," he said quietly. "You've uncovered the truths without letting them destroy you. You've learned her lessons and respected the balance she maintained. That is no small accomplishment." The older woman nodded, her expression less severe now, tinged with something like approval. "The network was never meant to trap you," she explained. "It was meant to preserve, to protect. Eleanor's life may have seemed constrained, but within those boundaries, she found a way to survive and even thrive. You've seen what that entails, and in doing so, you honor her memory." The girl who had first appeared in the market stepped closer, offering a small smile. "You've changed the story," she said simply. "By being careful, by understanding, and by choosing wisely, you've ensured that Eleanor's life and the lesson she left won't be lost." A calm settled over the square. The figures that had seemed ominous, threatening, or inscrutable now appeared more human, less like shadows and more like protectors of a fragile history. The conflict that had loomed so large over the misty streets had reached its resolution, not through violence or confrontation, but through patience, observation, and understanding, the very traits Eleanor had cultivated throughout her life. You walked slowly toward Eleanor's house, the letters tucked safely under your arm, your mind turning over everything you had learned. The streets, once shrouded in fog and danger, now felt familiar, almost comforting. The world of Victorian spinsters, the quiet lives shaped by social expectation, hidden alliances, and patient observation, had revealed itself to be far more intricate than you had imagined. Eleanor's struggles were real, profound, and yet full of resilience. And now, by stepping into her life, you had witnessed them firsthand. Inside the house, the familiar rooms held a new significance. The letters were no longer merely clues. They were a testament to Eleanor's careful navigation of her world, a record of her courage, and a guide to surviving unseen pressures with dignity and grace. The envelope, now empty, symbolized not just the knowledge she had kept, but the trust she had placed in whoever might follow in her footsteps. You felt a sense of connection, of responsibility, that extended beyond mere curiosity. Eleanor's life, her wisdom, and her vigilance had been passed on, and it was now part of your story as much as hers. Sitting by the hearth, you allowed yourself a long, deep breath. The climax, with all its tension, revelations, and dangers, had passed, leaving behind a quieter, more reflective atmosphere. The watchers, James, the older woman, and the girl, had all retreated to their roles, maintaining a silent presence that suggested the network still existed, but without interference. The conflicts that had seemed insurmountable were resolved, not through confrontation, but through awareness, respect, and the careful application of knowledge. You thought about Eleanor, about the quiet evenings she had spent reading, writing, and observing the world. She had lived in a space constrained by expectation and vigilance, yet she had found ways to assert small freedoms, to make choices, and to protect what mattered most. Her life was an example of courage not in grand gestures, but in sustained patience, careful decision-making, and an awareness of forces often unseen. The audience, if they were following along with her story, would see that heroism need not be dramatic to be profound. As sunlight finally pierced the windows, you realized that the story of Eleanor, and now your journey through her life, carried lessons beyond the historical or personal. It was about understanding human resilience, the quiet bravery of those constrained by circumstance, and the subtle ways individuals navigate worlds that seek to limit them. It was about observing carefully, acting thoughtfully, and honoring the wisdom left by those who came before. And yet, even in this resolution, a subtle tension remained. You knew the Watchers still existed, that hidden networks, alliances, and unseen forces could shape lives quietly, subtly, and powerfully. Eleanor had lived within such a world, and now, having walked through it yourself, you carried that knowledge forward. There would always be vigilance required, decisions to be made with care, and a respect for the hidden structures of life that influence outcomes in ways the casual observer may never notice. The house felt warmer now, the weight of past secrets less oppressive, the letters offering both guidance and closure. You laid them carefully on the table, allowing their messages to settle into your mind. Eleanor's life, with its patient endurance, careful observation, and subtle triumphs, had finally been honored. The conflicts had been faced, the twists revealed, and the legacy of her story preserved in both knowledge and reflection. And just as you prepared to step outside, to walk into the sunlight of a new day, carrying the lessons of the past, a soft rustle came from the hallway, a gentle reminder that some mysteries are never fully exhausted, that even resolved stories can carry echoes, and that life, much like Eleanor's carefully guarded existence, remains a balance between what is known, what is hidden, and what must be approached with awareness and respect. You smiled faintly, a mix of relief and contemplation, knowing that the story had reached its conclusion for now, yet the lessons would endure. Eleanor's resilience, her careful navigation of hidden pressures, and the quiet courage she embodied had left their mark. You had walked in her shoes, uncovered her truths, faced the watchers, and witnessed the complexities of a life constrained yet profoundly lived. As the sunlight warmed the room and the streets outside slowly came to life, you understood the final reflection. History, even the quietest lives, carries lessons for those willing to look closely, to observe, and to act with care. Eleanor's story, now part of yours, would linger in memory, teaching the value of patience, courage, and awareness in a world that often operates in shadows. With that thought, you stepped outside, breathing deeply, ready to move forward, carrying both the story of a Victorian spinster and the timeless lessons it offered, resilience, wisdom, and the quiet power of living deliberately, even in the face of unseen forces. The past had been revealed, the conflicts resolved, and yet the world remained alive with possibility, reflection, and the enduring truth that every life, no matter how constrained, leaves its mark on those who follow. The story ends here, but Eleanor's legacy and the lessons of patience, observation, and courage remain alive, whispering through the streets, the letters, and the lives of those willing to walk carefully, thoughtfully, and boldly through the shadows of history.